So this is for the password. And before we move on the emails, I want to have a look at I want to simplify this regular expression a bit. When you say at least one, there is a shorthand for that. The plus sign, you can type in plus or the plus sign. This says at least one or more. So that is one way of shortening our regular expression, because it is common for people to use these uh, uh, the patterns at least. And for the digits, there are special sequence. We can say at least a digit. Instead of typing 0 to 9, you can just say slash D. This represents the sequence of digits or numbers. The same thing goes for the letters. So for the words, we can use the underscore W, the backslash W. But in order to be very explicit, we're going to keep the pattern detailed. Then after, we can shorten it. We can try to make it shorter. So here, instead of saying 0 to 9, I'm going to say backslash D, then plus. And instead of saying 0 to 9, this is too long to type, we're just going to say backslash D. And one, at least one, we're going to say plus, which means at least one or more. So that's it for the password. Now let's move on the email. So the email, we have some conditions. I'm going to delete that, and we're going to start typing the conditions for the email. So the email is made of how many sections? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and we also have the @ sign, which also represents sections. So we have this something section. We're going to break it down. Then we have the @ sign. We have the @ sign. Then we have the domain. And after that, we have the extension. Now, we need to describe each part of this an email. So the something part, like that. The conditions are: it must contain letters, digits, no special character, and at least 3 characters long, at least and at most 10 character long. So letters, we have letters. Letters are A to Z and A to Z. Then must contain digits. So it's made of digits 0 to 9. No special character, which means it must not contain a character set that is not numbers or letters. So something like 0 to 9, A to Z, and uppercase A to uppercase Z. No white space. A white space is represented by the slash S. So this is a special sequence character. It represents the space, the tabs, the return characters, all the invisible characters. Then the length constraint is at least 3 character and at most 10 character long. So which means we're going to use this curly bracket notation uh, for multiplications. So at least 3 character and at most 10 character. So that's what the something pod is can be described. Now it's time to combine this into a single pattern. So this is going to give us, we have, it is made of letters. So these two patterns, we can combine it. So it's made of letters and digits. It's made of letters or digits. Oh, sorry, this is 9. So we're going to combine them. It's made of letters or digits, then at least 3 characters and at most 10 characters. So this is for the email. This is for the something pod. I can call it the user name pod. Now let's describe the domain section. So the domain is made of letters only. So we have letters from A to Z. Let's say lowercase letters. I'm going to say something like lower, change the condition, lowercase letters. So this is A from A to Z. And let's add some length constraints. We don't want the user to type in a domain pod that is too short or long. So we're gonna say at least 3 character long and at most let's say 10 character, or let's say 20 character long. So the domain section is made of lowercase letters A to Z, and these lowercase letters, these characters can be repeated at least 3 times to 20 times. Now the extension part of the email is made of letters. I want to precise it, lowercase letters, at least 2 character long and at most 3 character long. So that way we're gonna say lowercase letters are A from A to Z. So these characters at this position can be anything from A to Z. And we're going to repeat it at least 2 times or at most 3 times. So something like .NET works as a domain name. .io also works as a domain name. Extension, I want to say. I mean extension. So let's combine our, so we have the something pod, then we have the @, then we have the dot. So the dot character in regular expression, we have to escape it because it is a special character. So it's time to combine all this in one single regular expression. So for the something part, I'm just going to repeat it: A to Z, A to Z, and 0 to 9. Then this pause should be at least 3 characters or 10, followed by the at symbol, then followed by the domain. The domain should be from A to Z. So we have a characters set that can be taken from any letter between A to Z, and we're going to repeat it 3 to 10 times. So whatever the section, the length would be here, it must not be greater than 20. Then we have the dot sign. So the dots, we have to escape it because the dot is a special characters used by um, the regular expression syntax. Then the extension part takes its values from A to Z, and the characters can be repeated 2 or 3 times. So it can be any letters, any sequence of letters that contains things from A to Z. Now that is a description of an email. Now let's create our function called validate email. Then we have this regular expression function. Then we pass in the email. If it returns a match, a non-non, a not non-match is not non, then we consider it to be a valid email. It's time to test this thing, um, the validate email function. Validate email, if validate email, let's provide an email like my email at gmail.com. If it's valid, then we print email is valid. Else, we print email is not valid. Now let's run this program. Main. Yeah, the email is valid. Now we said that the something part or the username part of the email should contain letters or digits, but let's add something like an underscore. It says the email is not valid. And let's type in something like a dot. Email is not valid because the constraint, in the constraints, we says that this section of the email should contain, can have anything from letters or numbers, but the length should be at least 3 characters and at most 10 characters. What if we type in a domain name like gmail.to? It's not gonna work because after the dot we said that the character set or the sections in the pattern should only be lowercase letters. So this isn't gonna work. Email is not valid. Or if you type in .com like that, email is not valid. If you type in .io, it's valid because this IO port is in the character set 0 to Z, and also this section as a whole, the length is 2, which is what we wanted. So we describe the character set, then we apply the repetitions, and for each sections we might group things up, or uh, we might repeat some patterns. Now the phone numbers. I'm going to go up and delete the email description. For the phone numbers, we said that the phone numbers is made of digits, hyphens, uh, at least 5 character long, and at most 50 character long, no white space. I can give an example like that. Um, a valid number could be, let's say, um, 10, then a number, a hyphen, then a number, then a hyphen, then something like that. So, but it doesn't start with something like a minus sign, but it can start with a plus sign. That is possible. I'm going to add the conditions because sometimes people might indicate um, the country code. So can contain, can start with a plus sign. Okay. So can start with at least one, at most one plus sign, at most one plus sign. Okay. So let's try to define this thing. On the left side, we're going to describe a phone number. So the first condition is can start with at least a more easier way to explain that would be, I'm just going to copy the example, and from that we're gonna see how this thing, for example, this is a valid phone number, and this other number also is a valid phone number. So we have the plus sign, and here we don't have a plus sign, but the pattern that is being repeated is this: a hyphen, then a set of numbers, a hyphen, then a set of numbers, a hyphen, then a set of numbers. Or it can start with a plus sign or not a plus sign, followed by a digits, then followed by these patterns here. So this is very simple to describe, but it should also end with a number, because if you type in a hyphen at the end, this is not a valid phone number. So how to indicate that the plus sign is optional? So we can say, we can type in the character. The character is a plus sign. Then to say that it can be repeated 0 or 1 time, we can use this representation. We can repeat it like that. So the curly bracket at least 1 time, at least 0 time, and at most 1 time. So this means it is optional. So this means the plus sign is optional. Then it is followed by a digit. So it is followed by another section which is made of numbers. And these numbers, the plus sign should be followed by at least one digit, because we don't want to have a plus then and hyphen. So that way we're going to say at least one digit. And then what else we can have? It is followed by a hyphen, then a digit that can be repeated. Um, I think I'm going to just um, break this thing down a bit. So this is the first part, at least one plus sign, so 0 or 1, and followed by a number, so a digit, then followed by a hyphen that is followed by uh, a digit, so 0, 50, 0 to 9, and this can be, whenever there is a hyphen, this can be repeated. There should be one number at the end or more. Then it should also end with a number. So that ways we can say 0 to 9 with the dollar sign. So the dollar sign tells that the string must end with these characters, a character that can be a number from 0 to 9. We also have to add, we must say that the string can start or must can start or must start with a plus sign or not a plus sign. We use the caret to enforce the constraint. Now let's combine this. There is another constraint here. It says at least 5 character long and at most 50 character long, no white space. So at least 1 character long. So if you combine all this, at least we should have uh, 5, at least 5 character. So this is, if we don't have the plus sign, the numbers, so this will be 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4. But we're gonna have a look to these conditions after. So now let's type in the pattern. Plus, the plus sign can be repeated 0 on one time, followed by a number that can be repeated 1 or more time, then followed by a hyphen, then a number. So this is a pattern that can be repeated. Let's say the hyphen and the digits followed by a digit, it is repeated. So we can group it and repeat the group. So what we say hyphen followed by a digit. It should be at least 1 or more digit that follows the hyphen. Then we say it's going to be repeated um, so it's going to be repeated at least 1 or any number of times. Then we say it ends with this pattern. So we have this pattern inside the string, and the pattern repeats one or more time. Basically, this is what describes a phone number. Now let's go in the code and type in the function to validate the phone number. Validate phone number. If we find a match, I'm gonna pass in the pattern. We pass in the phone, then return match is not known. If validate, let's validate some phone numbers. If validate, uh, if validate phone number, print phone is valid, else print phone is not valid. So we're gonna test if a phone number is valid. For example, if you type in something like 561, is it a valid phone number? It says we have a parsing error. The pattern, there is a problem somewhere in the pattern. So nothing to repeat at position 1. What does that mean? I'm going to save the file. Yes. So there is an error in the regular expression, maybe a syntax issue. So it says nothing to repeat at position 1. Nothing to repeat at position 1. Um, let's consider that as a group.
Ibrahim, I think you didn't escape the plus sign in front.
The plus sign. Oh, yeah. So we have to escape it. True. So I'm going to correct that and escape it. Now let's run this. Yeah, it says phone number is not valid. But what if you type in 224? Phone number is not valid. But if you type in a hyphen, then you say 98, it says phone number is valid. So it's considered that is a valid phone number. Now let's get back to, so what if you type in something like 98 followed by something like 56? It says valid phone number. Now this is our phone number, but we're going to add some constraints on different sections of the phone number. For example, we can say that each sections, let's say these hyphen sign, then the digits. So we can say it should be at least 2 digits and at most 4 digits. So let's modify this condition. That would be at least 2 digits and at most 4 digits. And these patterns can be repeated at least 3 times. Let's say something like that. So we're gonna put it in a group and say at least let's say 4 times and at most 6 times. So the hyphen followed by a digits can be repeated. This group of pattern can be repeated at least 4 to 6. So let's add this in here. So I'm gonna change it and say 4 to 6. And for the numbers in the the digits, so these spots should be at least two or um, 2 or 4. So at least two numbers after the hyphens and at most 4 numbers after the hyphen. So now let's check if this is gonna work. It won't work. It says phone is and phone number is valid. Yes, because it is at least 8 numbers. Uh, oh yes, the patterns in the Python code, we need to update it. I'm gonna replace that and run the code. So it says phone is not valid. So this is because the hyphen followed by at least 2 digits to 4 digits must be repeated at least four. This group of characters must be repeated at least 4 to 6 times. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna say, okay, we have, let's say, 220 plus 24. Then we're gonna type in, so at least 1, 2, 3, 4. So at least 4 times. Then it can be um, something like 10. I'm just typing random numbers. And the last one, we're gonna say 2008. So this is considered to be a valid phone number. But what happened when you type in, when one of these groups length is greater than 6, let's say 4, you say phone number is not valid. But if we, let's say we delete, the plus sign is optional because we said it is 0 on what one time. So if there is no plus sign, it's gonna work. So that is for the phone number. But there is ways. Let's simplify this irregular expression a bit. For example, the 0 or 1 time, um, there is the question mark sign that represents this thing, that that is equivalent to what we just type in here. So you can type in the question mark sign to say at least 0 or 1 time. And 0, 1 or more time, which is represented by the square brackets 1 or more time, we can replace it by a plus. So it is equivalent. And the others, there's no ways to replace them for now. If you run the code, it gives us the same thing. So the syntax is very rich, but I'm going to I think this is all for now, and let's visit some materials on the internet, like website where you can test your regular expressions or to play.